And that's where, it really starts. And that's one of the things that we've prided ourselves on, for the last 5 years. And now this being the 6th year, it hasn't been up to our standards, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And even, with what ended up occurring, special teams with the block punt. So these are things that are correctable, but it's hard to really beat another team, if you don't stop beating yourself. And so those are the things that we'll continue to focus on is great communication, great command, great clarity from us. And I do believe those things are correctable, and I think that's going to be reflected this week.
How do you get Allen Robinson more high probability, not just looks, but opportunities?
Yeah, we just got to play better offensively.
Sean, you've made, and some of your players have made no secret about the desire to have Odell Beckham Jr. return.
Sure.
I don't know if you were aware, but in a series of tweets today, he said that LA didn't offer him, quote unquote, anything, and that the offer was the lowest of the lows. So I'm just curious if you're...
Artist made me aware of that right before I walked over here. I love Odell. We have constant dialogue. I think he also knows that certainly I don't think that's the last one that would come from us. I'm not familiar exactly what it is. He knows how we feel about him. We got a little bit of time, but love Odell. Nothing but good things coming from me.
Sean, after you watched Odell with the run game, is there anything specific that you want to focus on in practice this week?
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of what I was talking about. It's the communication, it's the overall execution of the fundamentals, the techniques, guys being able to press it where the ball's designed to be able to hit. And we got to be able to win the one-on-one matchups. In a lot of instances, sometimes it's just, hey, our guy versus their guy, and some of these situations based on how many guys they want to account for or how many they want to commit to the box, and that's where we got to be able to do a good job. But it's about the efficiency, can't take negatives, and if we do that, just like any other offense, you give yourself a chance to be able to be in much more favorable down and distances, and that's going to be a consistent theme for us no matter whether we're in a good situation or whether we're in a little bit of a rut right now. And, the one thing I think is important for our players to contextualize is that let's not allow 6 hours of football to change the whole sense of who we are, what we've become. And if you're not careful, you can let the outside in narrative dictate that. But, I was talking to the coaches about it. If you look at on Monday before that Monday night games kicked off, before we were playing the 49ers, we had come off of 2 games in a row where we had played not great, but good enough to be able to see like we're making good steps in the right direction. And then these last 2 games haven't been that. And we've got a decision to be able to make in terms of how we respond. And I do trust that response is in alignment up to this point with exactly what we're hunting up to have a good performance against the Panthers on Sunday. Have not yet.
I understand that there's a lot of nuance to what's going on offense right now, but in terms of the passing game specifically, are there ways to problem solve that where the target distribution is where you'd like it to be while also alleviating some of the burden on your line?
Yeah, you said it. There's just so many different things. It depends on what type of passes you're talking about, the different types of concepts. Obviously, certain things take time to develop, so there's a lot of layers to it.
How would you assess Joe Noteboom's play this year so far?
I think it's been, some things that are in alignment with what we expect from Joe, and then there's some things that he can do at a higher level, and I think he'd be the first to be able to tell you that. The consistency is something that we're hunting up from all of our players, but the good thing is that you've seen enough positives over the course of Joe's career to really be able to build on it, and let's learn from those things. He still is a young, developing player, but we want to be able to see that growth and maturation occur a little bit more quickly, and I do have a lot of confidence in Joe that that'll get done.
Go ahead, Greg. Sorry. How do you prepare for these guys this week? Not 100% knowing who's going to play quarterback, but it might be a guy you've not seen.
Yeah, I think what you do is you go based on, because with Ben McAdoo being the new coordinator, you look at the games that they've played the preseason. It is a little bit different approach than what they've had in previous years. And then if it is a different quarterback, you look at the different ways that he's been utilized, what is his skill set, and then how do we make sure we play good sound ball on defense.
What about Leonard Floyd? From the outside, it doesn't look like the production has been what it has been, but are we not seeing something, or does he need to?
Yeah, I think the stats can tell a part of the story, Gary. But there are definite situations where he's influencing and affecting the ball to have to come out. It might not show up on the stat sheet, but that does go noticed in our building. He's always a guy that's played with a relentless motor. I think even going back to a couple weeks ago, we were thinking, good night. He might be out for the year with what occurred during practice, and for him to even put himself in a position to be ready to play and do what he did against the Cardinals was pretty impressive. And so, he's he's doing a good job, and I know he'll be just like what was asked about Joe. There's things that we can improve upon without a doubt, but I've been pleased with Leonard.
What do you see from, I would say probably this defense from Carolina is not really reflective of their record. What have you seen from the way these guys sort of pressure and then on the back end?
Yeah, I see just a really good sound defense, Jordan. They play aggressive. They do a good job of being able to mix it up. They do a good job of getting off the ball at the, with the first level of their defense. And then they've got speed on the second and third levels, so good players, good sound system. I'll be interested to see, how much is there any sort of differences. You can still see a lot of the identities of what Coach Steve Wilkes or an Al Holcomb defense, they've definitely had their imprint on this, and they've played a lot of really good football, like you mentioned, through these first 5 weeks.
Yeah, I guess I wonder too, because philosophically, Wilkes is from, McDermott
Sure.
style, Rivera style, those types of coverage concepts. Phil Snow maybe wasn't doing those types of
Yeah.
things. How do you prepare for
I think they did some of that though. You can see that those guys have had their imprint on it. It's situationally driven, but depending upon how they wanted to play that. A lot of times their fronts and their coverages are all married together, and there are some things that they've done that are reflective of that background that you alluded to. And then Coach Snow definitely had his imprint on it. I'm not as familiar with his background, but some of the different, the odd spacing up front, whether that shows up, we've got to be ready to, we've got to be ready to prepare for that. But also, you don't want to get into that guessing game. It's about being able to play good, sound football, and I think that's kind of where we're at as an offense in particular as well.
Sean, a year ago, the sky was falling in November. Is this different? Do you use anything from that?
I think you do. I mean, you always use examples of how guys overcome adversity, but I think you also want to be in the moment. You don't want to. I think the big thing for us is, and I try to stay not necessarily unaware, but try not to let the outside in influence, my thought process and the way that I go about interacting with our players. Because all we can control is nothing that's happened before, but let's fix it, and then let's move forward and let's be totally and completely present. And it's cliche, but it really is true. And you got to really talk to yourself. You can't listen to yourself. I think our players have done a good job. And hey, what is the focus and concentration? It's on a great week of preparation, and let's do a great job of trying to go compete the right way with the spirit that we need, and see if we can come away with our third win, and then give ourselves a chance to get rested and hopefully get a lot of bodies back over that bye. But that's where we're at. And you know what? I'm grateful for this opportunity, because sometimes growth cannot occur unless you go through these types of experiences. And even though in the midst of it, it doesn't feel great, sometimes when you look back on those tough examples, those are the most rewarding times that I think really bring and bond people together, and you learn about people. And that's what we're going to do, and I'm excited about the opportunity. I don't want us to be in this spot, but we're going to do everything we can to fight out of it. I know that much. Okay?
Coach, we'll wrap up. We have a student writer.
Nice. Hi.
And we come from Hoover High School. We wanted to ask, what's the best advice you would give a young high school recruiter?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the best advice is build and develop relationships. Be genuinely interested in the kinds of questions that you're asking, and when you listen, then you give yourself a chance to learn, and then you'll continue to have that growth that's reflected in what you're hunting up. Okay? Nice to meet you. All right. Thanks, guys.
What kind of sandwich is that?
BioFresh. Burritos.
Dope.
It's free.
It's free? That must be nice. What's that?
What's the mood of the locker room right now after a couple of rough games for you guys?
I think the mood is good. I think everybody's hungry. We understand that we're close, and we just got to eliminate some of the plays that's hurt us, and just be locked in on the little things. But I really feel confident with us being able to kind of turn our things around.
Bobby, in your career, how do you communicate as a veteran to change mental mistakes?
That's a good question. I think you kind of just talk about it. I think the biggest thing that I feel like somebody that has experience can do is kind of walk somebody through your process, because we were once young players, we were once players early on, we were making mental mistakes. And so if you're able to kind of share those scars and share those experiences that you've kind of dealt with, because I think the biggest kind of myth is that as you get older, like, nothing bad happens, and like they forget that you had to go through that transition, you had to go through those times where things weren't great, or everything looks like it's good, but it took a lot of work, it took a lot of trial and error, it took a lot of failure to get to that point. And so just remind them what that failure looked like early on in your career that got you to this point.
Bobby, have there been any follow-up at all from Santa Clara Police Department or anything regarding what happened at the 49ers game?
Not that I know of. I'm good as far as I can tell.
When you,
We'll see.
when you hear in the game plan and then see it on film after the fact that Aaron Donald at wide 9, what's your reaction to that, and what was your interpretation of what you saw if you guys went back and watched of those rushing opportunities on the outside?
Him rushing on the outside. I think we move around a lot of places. In the last game, he kind of got to be off the ball a little bit, and saw what that looked like, having him coming off the ball. I think it's not pretty for the offenses, but he's just a very talented, amazing player. You can put him anywhere. If you can create that one-on-one matchup, he's going to win it every time. And so that's kind of what was happening.
Without being in the meetings or in the game planning process, when you do hear that might be a part of the plan, depending on how the game unfolds, does that give people any sort of energy, like you guys have this card to play that will be very hard to stop, or is it just business as usual?
I think whenever he puts his jersey on, I think we're pretty good, to be honest.
When you're rushing the passer, how much are you thinking about the roughing rule?
I'm not really thinking about it. I think it's not something you can think about. Even like the play that happened the other day, it's like you have to brace yourself. Like you have to be able, unless, if he doesn't put his arm out, he falls on his head. Then we're talking about, head impact to the ground. So, they make it really hard, for a defensive player to try to, but there's certain things that you can't do, in midair. I've seen some superheroes do it, but, this is not comics. So I don't really think about it. You kind of just do the best as you can and hope that they don't flag it, because there's guys that are thinking about it and, doing everything that they can, and it still gets flagged. So at the end of the day, we have to just play defense, because this is not a game that you can go out there and think too much, like where you're just constantly worried about something that's going to slow you down.
Do you think there's anything that needs to be adjusted?
I saw somebody mention that we should be able to review it. I think that'd be a nice little step, just to because even that play, like, he had the ball. So the only way for him to, like, not land on the quarterback is to drop the ball. But the whole point is to get the ball. So it puts us in quite the bind there.
Bobby, how do you generate more takeaways without forcing it to?
I think it's just capitalize on the ones that come to you. And, I really think that they're going to come. Even like when, Jalen got that sack, just can we go for the ball? So it's just different things. It's just being more mindful. The people that's been the best at it, whenever you ask them a question, ask them how they do it, you think it's going to be some crazy thing that they practice, but really they're just mindful. And so I think we could just be more mindful of trying to get the ball away.
That was a big moment for Jalen, his first sack.
I didn't know that. I thought he had like multiple sacks until he said something.
Yeah, I guess, do you remember your first sack or your first significant hit on quarterback?
Yeah, actually, it was in the preseason against Peyton Manning. I remember, he's one of those guys you watch growing up, and by the time I was in the league, he was pretty stationary. So, I got a good lick on him.
You got that hit on Peyton Manning. Did you say anything right there?
I don't know. I was a rookie, trying to be respectful. I probably said something, but a lot of stuff happens in the game that you don't remember, and like saying stuff wise. So, I don't know.
Bobby, I know it's not out of the ordinary for a nickel DB or somebody to start to get a sack, but when you do get that kind of production from that position, especially, what does that do for the whole defense?
I think it's a thing that offenses have to pay attention to, especially a guy like Jalen. Jalen can do a lot of amazing things, so which is why it's surprising me that was his first one. I think maybe all the other ones were TFLs, but you have to account for him. Account for a guy like that, account for our nickels, and you have to slide to that protection. And again, a lot of it is trying to create one-on-one. So if you slide that way, 80's over there. Again, you got to pick your poison.
When there's some uncertainty, go ahead.
So my name is Nelly, and
Nice to meet you.
I'm a reporter from Hoover High School.
Okay.
And I just wanted to ask, what's your favorite high school memory that's not football related?
Sheesh. Favorite high school memory that's not football related. Sports related, or
Sure.
can I say basketball? All right. Well, my last game I ever played in basketball, I did score 26 points. We have haters, to the left. Cameras don't need to go towards that way. He know who he is. But my last game as playing basketball, I think I had like 26 points. I knew that was like, I probably wasn't playing basketball after this, so I pretty much shot it often.
And like how you said, I think I had like 26 points. That's when you don't have the stat line number.
I'm saying it's 26 or above. It's not below that number. I know that for a fact.
Center or forward?
Huh?
Center or forward?
I'm a guard, man. You know what I mean? We played that offense where it's like one tall guy and everybody else was short, so you just kind of had, we had a center who was like 6'8", and everybody else was kind of hovering around 5-something. So we just passed the screen away, But they didn't want to play that day, so took all the shots.
Last one.
I got just a quick question about Sunday. When they're going, another team's going through shuffling and there's some uncertainty at quarterback, do you guys go back and study coordinator concepts and coordinator tendencies, or is it different than that as people who aren't in the room watching them with you guys?
I think it kind of depends on the person. I think this situation, you want to study the quarterback, how he, what he likes to throw, what he likes to do, because sometimes different coordinators will kind of put some stuff in there that's better for this quarterback than the previous one. So you kind of look at that, but I think for this game, it's like overall concepts will be pretty much the same, but this quarterback definitely can run the ball, and so you got to be conscious of it. I don't see them putting quarterback power into like the mix, but it's definitely something you have to be conscious of. Him being able to run and scramble.
So you're expecting PJ for sure.
I mean, that's who I see for now. I mean, you watch film on everybody, but I would lead me to believe that he's going to be the next guy up.
All set?
Good, appreciate it. Great question too, by the way. I've looked at stat. I'm not lying.